Frank's up front, don't worry about him.
No, I'm not on my knees. I just don't know.
Are we going to cameras or can you, is the shot okay? Thank you.
Thank you for being here today and welcome to SEMCOG. Joining us are dozens, more than dozens, of local leaders who care about access to housing. They are working hard to increase the types of housing available in our communities and address a housing affordability for everyone. But we are united in opposition to zoning preemption legislation that has been introduced in the Michigan House of Representatives and is currently before the House Regulatory Reform Committee. House Bills 5529 through 5532, along with related proposed legislation, if enacted, would not only strip local elected officials of their decision-making authority, it would also dismiss years of community planning work and amount to a clear override from Lansing of local voices and voter-backed decisions. So I'm proud to be joined by Dan Gilmartin, Executive Director and CEO of the Michigan Municipal League, as well as Josh Atwood, City Council from the City of Lapeer and the MML Board President, and Tom Hickson, Executive Director of the Michigan Townships Association. I appreciate their partnership in all of this. Together, we are honored to stand here with our members representing local governments from every corner of the state. In the last 48 hours, we have mobilized our members and helped them express their opposition to this legislation. As of the start of this press conference, over 1,300 officials from across communities in Michigan, with a combined population of 6.2 million people that they represent, have signed a letter of opposition to Chairman Aragona and members of the House Regulatory Reform Committee. We are asking for them to protect local decision-making and focus on community-led housing solutions. So you now have the opportunity to hear from many of our members, and I'm going to start with Chris Burnett, Orion Township Supervisor.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you everyone for being here. Today we stand together. Look at this picture. We're here to defend a simple fundamental principle. Local decisions should be made locally. Over the past several days, local government leaders across our state have spent hundreds of hours scrambling to understand these bills and to defend our communities from them. Let me be very clear. These state preemption bills are absolute government overreach. They take the zoning authority away from the people who live in our communities, and they hand it to politicians and special interest groups in Lansing who will never sit through a 4-hour planning commission meeting and public comment. That's not reform, friends. That's centralization. When sweeping legislation like this overrides local decision-making and is introduced without meaningful consultation, it reinforces exactly why trust in our government is at an all-time low, and that's a fact. Trust in federal and state government is at the lowest it's been in any of our lifetimes up here. Let me ask you something. By show of hands of my colleagues here, how many mayors, supervisors, council members, township board members, planning commissioners in this room were consulted before this bill package was introduced? That should concern everyone. Their job title is their job description, state representative. They represent us. And when legislation like this moves forward without consulting us, the communities it impacts the most, people actually begin to wonder why and who is really being represented. Listen, we are mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore.
All right.
Orion Township, we just completed a master plan update that engaged more than 600 residents over 2 years. It's in my hand right here. We had public workshops, surveys, open houses, real input, real compromise, shaping where businesses grow, how neighborhoods evolve. That's what democracy looks like. And what this legislation says, intentionally or not, is that those 600 voices don't matter, that the years of planning don't matter, that local consensus doesn't matter. This plan to Lansing is garbage. And that's not acceptable. Local officials are the ones protecting your property values. We're the ones planning infrastructure improvements. We're the ones balancing growth with public safety and fiscal responsibility. We are Republicans and Democrats alike. But first and foremost, we are local. You elect us. You see us at the grocery store, at our kids' soccer games, at church, at dinner. We don't have the opportunity to disappear to Lansing. And frankly, we're tired of being told that the people closest to the problem are somehow the least qualified to solve it. In Oregon Townships, residents that's municipal democracy. And this proposed preemption breaks that link. Tells residents your local voice doesn't matter. The real decisions are made somewhere else. A strong Michigan depends on strong local governments. Strong local government requires authority, accountability, and respect. So today, we are urging legislators on both sides of the aisle to reject this preemption package, reject state overreach, and reject one-size-fits-all mandates because clearly they don't fit all of us. Work with us, not over us. If you silence local voices, don't be surprised when local voters find theirs this year. With that, I'd like to turn over to my friend and colleague, Michigan Township Supervisor, Frank Viviano.
Thank you, Chris. I'm going to ask Paul Gillingham, Supervisor of Clinton Township, to stand with me. Now, together he and I represent more than 200,000 residents. And together we represent the entirety of one of the bill sponsors districts. Now, one of our core responsibilities as local elected is to make responsible decisions to help improve the quality of life for our residents. And zoning plays a large role in that. But this proposed bill package would significantly restrict local decision-making regarding zoning. It would prevent local leaders from making responsible determinations that have always been handled at the local level and with community input. Now, Michigan is not one type of community. It's urban, it's rural, it's suburban, and it's everything in between. Most of us at the local level are living and working in the communities that we represent, and it's us and our elected boards that are in the best positions to understand what our unique communities need and how our residents choose to live. This is not about resisting change. It's about preserving the democratic principle that the residents deserve a meaningful voice in shaping their own communities. Zoning decisions are not made lightly. They take years to develop and are the result of community-driven planning in the form of public input sessions, open houses, public hearings. We must not ever eliminate the people from the process, because these decisions will directly affect the health, safety, and welfare of the communities that we all live in. Yet removing people from the process is exactly what these bills aim to do. Communities are not static. They evolve carefully and intentionally. Local leaders balance housing needs, economic development, environmental protection, infrastructure capacity, neighborhood character, among a host of other factors unique to each city, township, and village in the state of Michigan. This legislation essentially would shift the decision-making, and not to Lansing, but to private developers whose sole motivation is increasing profits. This sets the stage for them to make decisions in their own self-interests at the expense of our residents. And we must not allow that to happen. Now, last night I was going over my comments and I was reading them in my living room. And my 11-year-old daughter was listening to me and she said, "Dad, I understand what that means." I said, "Honey, think about it this way. This bill passes the way that they're currently written. If something were to happen to one of our neighbors' houses and it had to be burned down, somebody could come in and build a duplex 5 feet from the property line." And she looked at me and she said, "Well, that's crazy. Who would ever do that?" I said, "You're right. It is true." Now, we must also address the claims that these bills will meaningfully increase the housing supply across the state. There's no evidence of that. There's no evidence that simply stripping away local decision-making will by itself produce housing growth that Michigan needs. Housing supply is driven by financing, infrastructure capacity, workforce availability, supply chain, market conditions. Zoning is only one very small part of the equation. Now, Supervisor Gilham and I live in neighboring communities. We share a border. Yet our two townships are decades apart in our growth cycle. Our challenges are very different despite our proximity. The decisions that he and his boards will make alongside his residents, they wouldn't work in the Chrome Township. Just as the choices made by my township boards wouldn't necessarily fit the needs of Clinton Township. We are here, all of us, to say clearly, local voices matter, local accountability matters, and community-led decision-making must remain at the center of Michigan's future. And with that, I will now turn this thing over to the Mayor of Parker Woods, Valerie Kendall.
Good morning, everyone, and I'm so glad that everyone is here today because this is such an important issue. Local control. I am the mayor of Parker Woods, and I have a problem with my singing space. I'm trying to read my statement, but the most important thing about this is that as someone who's lived in our community, in my community for over 20 years, I served on the planning commission. I've served many hours in long meetings. I've seen my neighbors who came and deeply cared about what happens in our community. And I want to talk about what works. What works in my community may not work in yours, but in our community, it worked. This summer, we broke ground on Fraser Square, which is a new development of 71 new homes, affordable homes in our community. We have not had a subdivision built in our community in decades, and this was a welcome site, a welcome affordability for people in our community. And mind you, our woods is landlocked. It's not like we had sprawling areas. This was a rebuild from tearing down an old school. And we were able to put 71 new homes here, affordable homes for people that earn $50,000, maybe 35, but reasonable homes, affordable homes. And we had a great developers sitting right here that helped us maintain and do this for our community. This is why it's so important that we have a decision in what we do in our community. And this project would not have happened and we did not have it. Had we not been able to partner with the state, local government, and our residents. Our residents came to each and every one of our public hearings, and they made their statements and their feelings heard. We heard them. We're accountable to those people in our community. We're accountable to them. So that's why it's so important that we make sure that we, as local officials, are accountable to the people who vote us in. Not someone sitting up in Lansing deciding what is best for our community. So I welcome the fact that we can do partnerships with our communities and with what our residents want. I'm off script because I can't read it all. But I'm saying this from my heart because this wouldn't have happened had we not had a partnership with a builder, our community, our residents, our planning commission, our zoning commission, our city council. This would not have happened. And it has been decades. And affordability home is so needed. I mean, our kids, our young kids are being priced out of home. They need to be able to stay. We want them to stay here. We want our grandchildren to be there. Affordability is something that we truly need, and we do not need people from Lansing telling us what is best for our community. Michigan is not a cookie cut community. What's good in one point is not necessarily good in another. So I am so opposed to this because you're taking away community control.
Thank you, Valerie. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Anne Marie Graham Hudak, Canton Township Supervisor. So these bills that we're talking about will significantly constrain thoughtful, community-driven planning in municipalities. Canton Township has successfully attracted attainable housing without state preemption. Canton is a growth leader. Canton's 2020 population of 98,659 makes it Michigan's ninth largest municipality, of approximately 2,000 across the state. From 2010 to 2020, we increased housing units and population by 9.4%, ranking it the seventh fastest growing community in the state. We exceeded state goals. Between 21 and 2025, Canton approved 1,493 permits for new residential units, representing 1.3% of the governor's goals to build or rehabilitate 115,000 units statewide by September 2026. We have maintained this pace so far in 2026. We also have a diverse housing pipeline. We currently have nearly 1,300 units under review, featuring a mix of detached and attached single-family homes, multifamily units, 661 senior housing units, and 96 specialized housing units for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Our 2025 master plan explicitly encourages infill and attainable housing. We are currently implementing a housing needs assessment right now to refine regulations for missing middle types such as ADUs, duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes. Simultaneously, our plan protects cherished rural areas. Based on site analysis and community input, we direct higher density to areas with appropriate infrastructure, the backbone of housing. In the 1970s, Canton had a housing group. The county approved developments on what we now know as floodplains. On August 24th, 2023, Canton declared a state of emergency due to flooding, major flooding, and a tornado within 24 hours. Many of these houses that were built on that floodplain in the 70s were flooded and permanently lost their backyards. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage was caused. Those homeowners constantly call me, email me, and often attend our board meetings asking for help. Those developments would not be approved with the knowledge we have now of our communities. The knowledge we have now is opposed to 50 years ago. These bills set us up to make the same mistakes again. Poor planning hurts our families. It costs money and it will make things less affordable. For these reasons, we need legislators to reject these bills. I will now turn it over to Mayor Andy Shore from the city of Lansing.
Good morning, everyone. First, when all of these folks behind me say the people of Lansing, that's going on in Lansing, they don't mean state. Only state government. Okay, I'm sitting here listening. I am not from Southeast Michigan, but I heard about this. I got calls from Democrat and Republican friends, township boards and mayors, and I kind of got in my car and started my head down. So I think that it's important. It's important for the whole state. It's not just Southeast. This is our whole state. And I want to be clear. Housing affordability and supply are serious challenges. And we local governments recognize this, and we work on active solutions. The city of Lansing is doing this. We're going to have completed about 1,500 new units just in the last few years, working with our local development community, folks from out of town, working with anybody. Use the tools that we have through our planning processes. We're also doing rehabs of housing because we are, again, an urban community. We have infrastructure that we can retool to make sure that costs are down, but we can get folks into those buildings. We have passed ordinances. We have created form-based code and zoning. We've reduced parking requirements. We allow ADUs. These are important to our residents who came to us and supported these measures. We had op-eds and papers. We had folks who wanted these, and these are all good starts, but preempting local government does not create, rehab, or incent one home. They're not one. We need funding. Funding makes this happen. The state has options. Right? We've got LIHTC, low-income tax credits. There was a pot of missing middle money. Housing and community development dollars. State buy-in when we have what are called pilots or payment in lieu of taxes. And state buy-in when we have housing tips to make sure that this isn't just us in our tax area. This is everybody who is contributing to this housing crisis. We have community development tax credits that are being proposed. We have gap financing and rehabilitation specific dollars. These are all the things that we have to look at and work through. Communities are doing all they can to help with local tax dollars from our residents through pilots, local tax increment financing, providing land to build on parking lots or other low-use parcels. These are the things that we deal with every day. But we need the state's help. We don't need preemption, but we need partnership and funding support. Bridging the funding gaps that developers face allow for more affordable housing to be built and fixed in communities like Lansing, communities all throughout the state. That's the best way to build and rehabilitate housing in our communities. And just so you know, we're not just here to say no.
Right.
We're here to say that's the better solution. We announced several months ago that the My Home Plan last year with bipartisan legislators and a variety of local officials in Lansing City Hall with the MML and with others, which offers a constructive alternative to state preemption. It respects the diversity of Michigan's communities, both urban, suburban, and rural, and provides tools and incentives that empower local governments to expand housing supply in ways that fit their unique circumstances. So instead of overriding local plans, and there's one sitting on the floor right here, instead of overriding them, the My Home Plan works with communities. It supports flexibility, it encourages innovation, and importantly, it's designed to help build more homes by aligning state support with local implementation. Sweeping mandates oversimplify the problem and ignore the unique needs and circumstances of Michigan's suburban communities. So we ask the House of Representatives to reject these bills and work with local government on solutions that put our partnerships over preemption. So now I want to turn it over. I want to turn it over to Mayor Andrew Swift in the great city of Riverview.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to say it's a pleasure to be here, but for those who know me, I don't get up this early for anybody. So this is that important. So on behalf of the city of Riverview, I want to express our opposition to the 9 bills that will preempt the authority of our council and our planning commissions to make decisions that affect our unique community. We should be working to address the state's housing crisis, but these bills raise significant concerns about planning authority while also enacting and recognizing the complex capacity considerations of the existing public utilities and our infrastructure. Current housing and zoning standards are not arbitrary. They are calibrated, aligning with the roads, capacity of the roads, our stormwater sewer systems, water and sewer infrastructure, as well as fire services. Increasing density without adequate local review and mitigation planning creates risk of overburdened utilities, unsafe traffic conditions, and strained public safety. This can all lead us to ask our residents for more money for the same services that they're already getting. Our municipal engineers, planners, and locally appointed zoning boards must retain significant authority and the time to evaluate impacts, coordinate necessary infrastructure improvements, and ensure the consistency with the long-range capital improvement plans that are unique to each of the city. Community-based control is very important. In Riverview, like many downriver small communities throughout Michigan, we've worked hard to ensure that we provide high quality of life and affordable place for our residents to live. local governments, where many housing innovations began, adapt reuse policies, mixed-use zoning reforms, and voluntary density incentives, and streamline the approval process to develop all with public support. Preemption is not a housing strategy. Collaboration is. We encourage the state. We encourage the state to pursue meaningful solutions to reduce housing costs in partnership with local governments, not an adversarial relationship. Now I'd like to turn it over to the Mayor of Rochester Hills, Brian Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Swift. I'm Brian Brandt, Mayor of the City of Rochester Hills. It's a privilege to be here today. Usually when I have to speak after my brother, I start with an apology, but not today. I'm proud of him, and I'm proud to stand with all of these colleagues behind me. And as we wrap this press conference, I ask you to do a couple things. One, certainly the words that have been mentioned by the speakers before us are important, each of them. But what about this vision? When is the last time you saw Republicans, Democrats, and Independents gathered together on the steps of the Capitol, either in Washington or in Lansing, united so definitively behind an issue? This visual is just as impressive. If you represent communities across the region, even as you heard from the speakers before me, political, economic, geographic backgrounds, yet united. So difficult in this current political environment. What issue could do this? It's not a partisan issue, not at all. It's a governance issue. Local decision-making has long been supported across all party lines. And frankly, it's been the best source of decision-making in this country the past 250 years. Communities function best when the decisions are made by those closest to the people. We all know that. You know that. Our message today is about unity. Unity in defending democratic decision-making and the accountability that goes with making those local decisions. Regardless of party affiliation, we all agree that local voices must remain central to zoning and land use decisions. Now, let me be crystal clear about this point. Every person behind me is pro-housing. Don't let anyone tell you anything different. We cherish our communities and selfishly want as many people as possible to see what we are so proud of. You know how I know that? Because if you ask any one of these electeds behind me how many people live in their community, they round up. The reason they do that is because they are proud and want more people to understand why living in their community is so exceptional. We understand the American dream of homeownership, and we work hard every day to make it possible for as many people as possible. And we certainly know and understand that housing is a real national and local challenge. We know we need more diversity in housing stock, more options, more possibilities. We all agree. But taking away the responsibility of locally elected officials to implement those community-led decisions we've heard about today is not the answer.
Right.
It will only create more problems. When you take zoning decisions away from local governments, you're not taking them away from these faces. You're taking them away from our residents. Our city, we just updated our master plan just 3 months ago. It was a 9-month process. 2,500 people engaged in that process along the way. 2,500 voices came out to share their dreams for their community. Long-time residents, first-time homeowners, and everything in between, in every demographic. And they certainly didn't all agree. They're close, but they were heard. And we, as electeds locally, are building our future around those voices. And that same grassroots process has been done over and over by the incredible leaders standing behind me. You just heard several of my colleagues talk about their unique solutions to housing challenges. Cities are the world's innovation labs. We see it all the time. What they're doing in Harper Woods and Lansing is truly exceptional. In Rochester Hills, we broke ground on the first ever housing development strictly for the ITV community, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's a single family, multifamily, and caregiver homes in a clustered community. So first development of its kind in Oakland County. And we're breaking ground on a second similar development this year. And you know, we didn't do it because the state mandated it. Or told us we had to. We did it because we saw the need. We worked with the private sector, we worked with the neighbors, we worked with the IDD community, and we made it happen. Cities across Michigan are doing the same thing. You see, when people care about their community, they show up, they speak, they ask questions, and then they hold us accountable. Because that's local democracy at work. If the state preempts these zoning rules, the local voice doesn't just become weaker, it's eliminated. Those 2,500 voices in my community, silence. They're up. And the worst part, the people that we both represent, locals and statewide officials, they'll still have to live with the consequences of those developments. But they'll have no say in how they happen. Bad solutions can make a challenging problem worse. Friends, I'd like to lose weight first. There are lots of ways to do it. But I'm not going to do it by cutting off my left arm. While some might foolishly suggest this would accomplish one of their goals, I know it will cause many more problems than it will solve. This legislation is similar. It's not good for democracy. It's not good for any Michigander listening today. Preemption does not lead to greater affordability. We need collaboration, and I and my colleagues and the 1,300 plus strong standing behind me and signing that document are urging legislators to stop this preemption package now.
Right.
These bills promise affordability, but they deliver something far more sinister: centralization. They ignore the reality that housing costs are driven mostly by interest rates, labor shortages, material costs, market forces that stripping local authority will not fix. As we have heard from leaders across the state, from Canton to Lansing to Riverview, Rochester Hills, zoning is not just red tape. It's a tool we use to ensure that growth is sustainable, that our roads and sewers can handle new density, that our communities evolve in a way that respects the residents, all them. What we need: support, genuine support. And we urge the legislature to reject this government overreach and trust these leaders behind me and across the state to do their jobs. A strong Michigan depends on strong local communities, and we encourage Lansing to work with us and not over us. And now we'll take a few questions. Do my best to moderate these questions and direct them as possible. Please announce who you are and who you're with, please.
My name's Liz. I'm with Farmer News Service. News came out today that Whitmer will propose her own zoning changes in her state of the state address tomorrow. Have you heard of anything about this? And are you worried that if it's on the same line as this legislation, that it's sort of a shoe-in for a yes vote?
Well, we actually have a couple of former state legislators that are now local elected officials. I'd asked Mayor Hamid from the Dearborn to maybe come up. And Mayor, sure, you want to take this?
Right. Speak on that too, so I could when he's done.
Sure.
Abdul Mahmoud, Mayor of the City of Dearborn. I think we'll wait to see what the language says, but anything that invokes preemption, I think you're going to see unanimous support with individuals standing here today saying not take away local authority. Reality is the state can give grandiose speeches and speak to the mission statement, but it's all these people here who are actually doing the work and getting it done. When you got an issue in your city and you call 911 services, that's all employees are answering the call. you got an issue in your neighborhood, you call 311, it's our employees who are answering the call. And so while I respect the role that the state plays as a former state legislator, but I took the note of Andy Short leaving and becoming the mayor, because the mayor's getting it done. And that's what we're hearing your voice today. We want to expand housing. Dearborn is the fastest growing city in the state of Michigan, one of the youngest in the state of Michigan. We have less than a 2% vacancy rate. And our absorption in Dearborn is 4 times greater than the Michigan average. Yet we are building housing in a responsible manner, one that bestows the dignity of home ownership amongst our residents and ensure that they have it.
Now, I'm going to add, look, I did hear that. And if the governor is interested in tax credits for our developers, if she's interested in missing middle money that we can use to help out folks to create more housing, then the legislative process is myself and Mayor Mood and Supervisor Wilhelm, we were all there. And the legislative process is comment, work through a bill with a work group. I think work groups used to happen when we were there. I'm not sure if they still do. But work in a work group, figure out the details, and then move forward together. My hope is that whatever the governor is proposing, which I will be there tomorrow night to hear it, that is something she throws out to say, let's get more housing. And let's work with our local partners to see what tools do they need. How do we get from A to Z to make it happen? That's my hope. I guess we'll all hear tomorrow night, but I know the governor is supporting housing. And, my expectation is that all of us, through our associations and through others, we will be in that room to talk about what we see on the ground. We're the ones who go to the local Walgreens and the local gas station and pumping gas, and someone comes over to us and says, oh my God, I can't believe what's going on in my neighborhood. And again, when we were in the legislature, we heard about that a lot from our mayors, from our council members. So I hope that the governor's comments will lead to that kind of process.
So if I could, Paul Hill in Clinton Township, having served as a legislator, here's what but my widening the lens of this, and the right way to look at it is currently there is a Zoning and Enabling Act. And in that act are certain parameters. Those parameters provide us the guidepost of what we do as local communities, but we create it in such a way that works the right way for our communities. And so eliminating many of those standards and those parameters and those guideposts and taking all control away from local communities basically places the power in the hands of the developers. And when you heard our township supervisor of Canton say, hey, these houses built 50 years ago in a floodplain, they're not there anymore. The people who built those homes aren't there. They're not taking responsibility, but the local township is. And so that's the reality. When the development was occurring within Harper Woods, what you saw is these developers working with the local community, working with the residents. I'm sure there were 3 or 4 or 5, 6 versions of that development to accommodate the needs of local people that were commenting on these issues. And that is what this is really about. How do we as local officials work within the parameters provided to us by the state? And we do a good job of that. We know our communities, and the things that we enact are there to protect our residents.
Right, of solutions here is the short answer to that. As Supervisor Staff, I just want to say one thing real quickly on this.
Well, first of all, Ronald Reagan once said, and I quote, "The 9 most terrifying words in English language is I'm from government and I'm here to help you." Well, I have a slight amendment to that, and it's I'm from Lansing and I'm here to help you. Let me be really clear. In Lansing, if Lansing wishes to make housing more attainable, it should reduce the tax burden it weighs on our working families. Lower income taxes, strengthen and streamline regulations and increase costs without weakening safety. Encourage economic growth that raises wages and expands opportunity. And do not erode the ability of local governments to provide the police and fire protection. That's the infrastructure, the community standards that make our neighborhoods unique. Local government is not an obstacle to prosperity. It is one of the greatest safeguards. Communities differ, priorities differ, and what works in one city or township may not work in another. And that is not the system. It is its greatest strength. And the culture of government is to the people, and to everybody here. I'm sorry about that. I'm trying hard not to speak with my hands, but it's hard to do. But the closer government is to the people, the more acceptable it is. And decisions about land use and zoning and community character are among the most personal and consequential choices that a town could make and should remain in the hands of those who live there. And finally, I just want to say that, yes, we do need to pursue affordability without a doubt, but do it in a way that strengthens freedom, protects property rights, and respects the voices of established residents. In America and in Shelby Township, we solve problems not by centralizing power, but by trusting the people and the communities that they call home. In short, Lansing, I request, please, keep your social interests and big ideas outside of Shelby Township and to yourself. Thank you very much.
One more member answer that question, and we'll get to your question next. Our host here in the city of Detroit, Councilman Scott Benson.
Good morning, everyone. In city of Detroit, we are really key when it comes to preemption. Just like somebody else said, partnerships, not preemption. We in the city rely on our residents to help guide us when it comes to how we can develop in our community. What we don't do the top down, we'll tell you what we're going to put there. That's the same way we do not want that type of overreach from the state of Michigan. Preemption harms communities. And just like you heard from Canton Township, we do not need those who do not live locally to tell us how to govern locally. We can best regulate and represent our residents ourselves at the local level. We need Lansing to provide resources. We need Lansing to provide the goalposts, the guide rails when it comes to how we do development. And we need those financial resources for Lansing as well. What we don't need is Lansing telling us how to do development or who we have to allow to do development in our communities. Because all the times Lansing gets that wrong. Local leaders invest, local leaders are answerable to our residents in our districts, in our townships, in our cities, and our villages. You know, best locally, allow us to take that lead. We will work with you, Lansing, but do not tell us how to engage, how to develop. Hope us can ask for your help. Thank you.
Take a couple more questions, and I will let you know that individual electeds will stay up here if you have a specific question for a city or a township. So most of us will stay up here for our individual questions. I think you and then ahead. So please say who you're with and your question.
I think Snabs with the Detroit News. I was wondering if you could provide a few examples of specific parts of these bills that you feel like those aspects of the bills really limit what you're able to do.
Yeah. Well, I think I would start with the beginning and then end with the end, and then everything in the middle. And I'll maybe ask Mayor Baker from Troy to come up and start with these comments. The challenge, if you've read the bills, I assume you have, is that they seem to rely heavily on the interests of developers and very little on the interests of homes. And I think you've heard that theme consistently here. We think there are a lot of other ways to address these core issues that we see as problematic. All of those, first of all, there's a large question whether they even address anything related to affordability. But imagine taking that to, there's a level of government even lower than us, it's homeowners associations, right? Imagine taking those to their homeowners associations saying, we've got a great idea, listen to these 9 things. Good luck getting out of the room. I mean, most owners associations would not find these helpful in any way. That's what we're really fighting against is just the fact that these bills, as my brother mentioned earlier, no one was consulted on these. A single one of us. It's hard to figure out how you can implement something over someone without engaging them at all in the process and expect them to be happy at the end.
Mayor Baker. Honorable Ryan, Ethan Baker, City of Troy, right next to Rochester Hills. And we're cities that many people think are very similar to begin with. But what happens in Troy and what happens in Rochester Hills are very, very different. So imagine on that, if you spread it out from a countywide standpoint to the state as a whole, I think that the biggest issue is taking away the voice of our community members. So these bills specifically, not listening to us, not listening to the people we represent, we call ourselves experts. The reality is, it's not us that should be patting ourselves on the back. It's our residents and community members that have worked so hard to come to our meetings and to share what they feel is best for their communities. And the biggest issue for me that this bill specifically, this package of bills, is the related infrastructure burden that puts on each of us individually. It doesn't address how we're going to handle these things when we've got a one-size-fits-all approach that comes to us. So I think we know best, and our communities know best what infrastructure needs we have, how best to fund us, which is difficult. I think we can all agree on that right now. But Lansing solving this problem isn't going to work. It's not a solution. We've had a very initiative tonight, Troy, where they are deliberating, hopefully passing some zoning text amendments that have done the work of several years of great community focus groups, the master plan updates, really intense community focus work, neighborhood by neighborhood. To think that is going to be for naught, it will be thrown away, and the hundreds and hundreds of voices of the Detroit residents are going to be discarded. That's so exciting to me as mayor as they are. So again, keep it local, keep it focused on our communities. It's not about NIMBYism. We all want to handle affordable housing. We're all individually focused on doing it our own ways. That's how it's going to work best in this state. It can't be a one-size-fits-all mandate. Typically, that never works. There are time and place for policy being set out in state government. I be sure about it. There's a time and a place for that, but this is not the time and the place. Keep these community focused. Let our residents' voices be heard. Don't take that away from them. It's so fair.
Specific on that too is the setbacks requirements, the minimum lot sizes or the maximum lot sizes would be 5 times smaller than our current lot sizes. Infrastructure is critical. You've heard that over and over and over. And the challenge we have is there is a design, there is a plan, there's a reason why we have our setbacks the way they are. Have to do with availability of fire hydrants, infrastructure that needs to be there. And so when you cluster these homes so close, in Oregon, we only have so many REUs, only so many units of sewer that we can flow down to the city of Detroit remaining. So we have planned that out for the rest of our community to be built out. If these bills come in and preempt that, which they specifically do, and allow these tiny lots and tiny units, which we support in the right areas, that uses up all of our remaining capacity. There was no smart planning for that. So that's specific to these bills that's in that we would speak to.
I would just add that I don't know everyone behind me, but I know one thing about every single one of them. None of them got into this for the money. We all got into this because we have a passion for our communities, no matter where they are in the mid. And I think what you see here is a raw reaction to when people want to mess with our communities. You have people that just go, this doesn't feel right. This is right. We have put so much blood, sweat, tears, and passion into the communities we represent, and listening to the voices that we hear. And when this comes in from left field with no discussion, that's what I think a combination of anger, frustration, pride in where we come from, thinking that we're all doing a great job where we are and that we have a plan moving forward. We know there are things we need to work on, but what you're seeing is the passion people have for their hometowns. That's what I'm hearing the whole break.
Thank you. Nick Mannix, Blue Cranes Detroit Business. I think, I've heard the proponents of the bills, note that this is hardly the only state where, preemption of local zoning has been considered or passed. I think there's upwards of a dozen states. Just, wondering if you could, share any thoughts on, other states that have done this and maybe what the results have been.
Other states that have a preemption?
Yes. I think there's upwards of a dozen in kind of various forms.
I'm not official, but I will say from SEMCOG planner that where we are hearing this happening are places like Florida, Texas, California, Oregon, high growth areas. Michigan and Southeast Michigan is kind of we do demographic forecasting for the region. We can get you those numbers to show even looking out between now and 2055, we're going to see a decrease in population. So we are not those areas that are doing the preemption.
I think this is a great question. By the way, I think we all read praise. I think you're talking to the wrong crowd to find somebody to come up and say something good about preemption. No matter where it is, no matter where we see it or where we've heard of it. And Amy mentioned spaces. We all know, Houston is a community where there's no zoning, and there's all sorts of discussions about that. But yeah, you're not going to find fans of preemption because we are passionate protectors of the local voice. I'll let Dan Martin from MLS take the board.
Well, like Amy, another non-local elected official, but certainly some of the folks going on here. I can talk to you about Oregon, which is often the issue, often the state points to be one of the first ones up, and he to do this under the guise of making things cheaper. It says they passed their package of bill for preemptive housing starts in Oregon metropolitan areas about 30 to 45%. It's not working, and there's a lot of people in Oregon, including many of these sponsors, legislation going into diversity, because it is not money saver. It does not, preemption alone do not make things cheaper for homeowners. They do not make things cheaper. No, a developer, friend in the audience, shaking their heads that absolutely true. She knows that people on the ground know it. There is no connection between state preemption and affordability. Zero.
So I would say this, we hope that we've got Lansing's attention. We want to be partners in the solution moving forward. And we want the clear message to be that local voices matter. Local voices matter, and we urge Lansing to work with us and not over us. Thank you for being here today.